Hey everyone, so today I want to talk to y'all a little bit about resin and the different kinds of resin that I've been using in these products. A lot of people have been asking me about them and the difference between the UV resin, the epoxy resin. After my little incident yesterday, there was a blow up and I thought I'd never use epoxy resin again. And here I today ordered a bulk package of epoxy resin. So let's talk about some just tips and tricks and my opinion about the on the differences between them. So these here are the there I am dropping things. Okay, I drop everything. Yeah, we'll see that a lot. So the molds, sometimes if you're getting a piece like this, it's got a little skinny neck. It's kind of hard to get them put right side out again after you've demolded your piece. I figured out today that using a pencil end is amazing for turning them right side out again. It looks dramatic, I promise it's not. Your UV resin, if you put in these molds, which is actually what it's best for since they're clear, they kind of, the viscosity of UV resin is thicker than epoxy resin, and so I had this issue of my molds having bubbles in them in some of these little spots, and I'll show you a piece in a second. And here I am. These are showing these molds, how they have the little stands on them to support them, so when you're wanting to fill them up with resin, you can just pour it right in there, and the mold holds up, or holds itself up nicely. I wouldn't suggest putting them all close together like that, especially not if you're clumsy like me and you're trying to fill them up. Just, yeah, don't fall over. You'll make a mess. So anyways, when you pour the UV resin down into these different molds, the UV resin's thicker. It won't get in the cracks as well as the epoxy resin does. And I'll do a video on that later, showing how to fill them with the different kinds. But now that I've done this, if you look at this piece that I'm about to show you, this is a broken pond, and I did 2 in a row. They both came out broken like this. I don't know if you can see in that piece, but it's missing. There's just a complete hole in. Well, there I go again. Oh wow. Okay, so it's missing. It's got a hole in there. And I think it's because of the shrink rate of the UV resin is higher than the shrink rate of the epoxy resin while it's curing. So it's actually the outside. Wow. So the outside's the outside is curing. It's getting hard, and it'll leave the inside soft and able to have a hole in it. But I like how, oh, here, look at this, in the UV resin, when you fill up the UV resin, you put some glitter in it, and you've got it in there, you can see that it's shrinking from itself, so it's causing this kind of hole, and the inside in there soft. It's hard on the outside, but it's not really, when it shrinks, there's a little bit that's still soft on the inside as it's curing, and so it leaves that hole, kind of like if you had a hole on the outside. It does get hard, and as long as it doesn't, sever the whole piece, it would come out okay, but the shrinkage in that UV resin causes that. If you look at this piece right here, I don't know if it'll focus well, but right there, see that chunk missing right near my thumb? That's because the UV resin didn't fill in the mold in that little ledge there. And so when a bubble is on such a tiny piece like that, it just doesn't have product there at all. leaves it completely missing it. I think epoxy resin would be better at this. It's thinner. It runs more freely, so it should be able to fill those cracks up better. We'll see after I've got some of these pieces done in epoxy. We'll see what that looks like. Here's another piece. I don't, if you can see if it focuses on the top of those, right there on the top. See how they look like teeth instead of flat, nice and flat? It's because they didn't, that UV resin didn't fill in all the way to the tip and make a there's one, you can see how it's taller there, that one piece. It's just the resin filled in better in that area. So I think small bits like that you'd be good to get in with epoxy resin instead of UV resin. That's just because of its thickness. It runs kind of thick, like molasses. Let me look at this right on his chin. You can see there on the chin of the horse where, you can kind of see it, where it's missing that piece. And it's not extremely noticeable, but if you're making pieces to try and sell, or that you want, you know, to display nicely, you're not going to want it to have this hole in his chin, because it really is uneven. So we'll check it out after we get some of these cured in epoxy and see if it does better at filling in those little cracks. These are nice pieces, they're solid pieces, but it does have issues filling in all those holes. And I squeezed those molds to get any air bubbles out, and it still ended up with these holes. So there's that. It's really pretty. Obviously, if you're just, you know, like I said, making these for fun, that's not going to be quite an issue. I mean, as you can see, they're beautiful pieces. These molds, I'll put a link in the description. I found them on Amazon. Same for this mold here. I got off Amazon. These are the flat planchette mold. I did this one with UV resin. Look here. So the back looks like. And this one is the one that I did with epoxy resin. It's much clearer. You can see through it a lot better. And the reason why it looks like this is because in the UV resin planchette, for some reason it forces all of your big glitter down flat onto one side, the bottom side of whatever you're making. So as you can see, it's less see-through because all of your glitter's kind of smushed down there on the front. It's actually really pretty, but it does have, makes it look less transparent. But it's about the same transparency, just a different glitter formation. So we'll see. We make some of these out of epoxy, and we'll come back to this and see if they, you know, if they do better in epoxy versus the UV resin. We'll see what happens.